I'm India Brown,
And I'm Sydney Wilson.
and we are two Southern gals making it in the big city world where we both work on a Broadway show.
And this is our podcast, Social Cues, a show where we put away our show scripts and stage blocking.
And have real conversations about how it feels being professional performers in a lucrative industry.
One topic at a time.
Hey y'all, welcome back to Social Cues.
Hey, I'm Sydney.
I'm India.
And this is our podcast.
This is
Welcome
our
back.
podcast. You guys are in for another treat because we have a spectacular interview coming up with the beautiful, the wonderful, the talented Adreian Walker.
Yes, it's a good one, so you do not want to miss this episode.
Yes. Oh, but before we get into all that, can we talk about what's happening in the pop culture news?
Yeah, they're wilding out.
Okay. We only want to speak about this because it's a little specific to our craft. So I'm sure by now you all have heard the latest news, or by the time this comes out, it won't be so latest. But you've heard the news where pop star Lizzo is being sued by her backup dancers for basically lewd behavior and for creating like a toxic work environment. What are
Which is
your thoughts,
unfortunate,
Sydney?
just because, even she has such a specific image. Like, she is this, body positive, and all of her dancers are the same. And even I think because she eats vegan, like, she is a vegan.
Oh, word, I didn't know that.
And I told my mom that, and she was like, well, isn't her whole thing about kind of, being
Positivity.
positive about the body she's in? And I was like, yeah, I don't know that she's doing it to lose weight. I just think she, so I think people were just kind of confused. But that's her whole shtick. And I'm like, all here for it. And,
well, it was a report that one of the dancers reported that she body shamed them. I think they had gained a couple of pounds, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah, they had gained a couple of pounds, and she was very vocal.
And it's not like, celebrities are off, like they can do no wrong, but it's like, you have a really great platform, but doesn't that happen to everybody too? It's like, I don't even get, that's even when we were talking about it, I'm like, I don't even know, because I don't really get wrapped up in this stuff, because it's like, as soon as you think somebody is, or like really, rooting for them, or really like, I love her platform, and I love how she, oh, there she go, doing the same stuff that people did.
Right. People gon' people, child. That's what I say.
So what do you feel, especially as a dancer? Like, you've done backup work for people before.
Yeah. Here's what I will say. Bravo to the dancers who are speaking up. I think the culture that has been cultivated surrounding dancers of all backgrounds, doesn't even have to just be pop star backup dancers, but honestly, from my opinion, I feel like we are treated like we're at the bottom of the totem pole. We're discarded, we're overlooked, or, I think I've even mentioned this before. I was a concert performer, and we jokingly say that this these days, but we would like lay out our own, well, we didn't literally lay out our own Marley. Some people have, so that has happened. I didn't, but we have literally like ironed our own costumes. Some people have laid out their own Marley floors. Like, we're doing the crew work, and performing and traveling. So I think it's great that it's shining light on the mistreatment of backup performers.
Yeah.
I think, backup singers get this as well, but, we hadn't quite heard about the dancers. You just see the glamour of it all. These are beautiful, amazing people dancing alongside these cool artists, right? These award shows. And you see it as, oh, they're just great, getting these great opportunities. When you don't align the lifestyle that goes along with that, how toxic it can be, how discouraging it can be, how your self-esteem can be tarnished, how alcoholism and drug use and all that stuff, like, it's a fast-paced lifestyle that enough people aren't talking about. I did find it really interesting coming from Lizzo. I mean, if I gotta be honest, like, I got behind her message. I got behind her body positivity, and she's a strong Black woman, and just everything that her message said was just empowerment.
Yeah.
And to hear, she's toxic is disappointing.
She's getting like, it's one thing to hear that somebody's toxic,
Hey, this ain't just
but
gossip.
being sued by multiple people, that's when you're like, wow,
and it's the multiple people part. It's like, that sucks.
Yeah.
Like, really? You're a female with a certain body type that has been, ostracized and put out, and you're doing this to other women?
People, right.
Right.
When you've
like, come
seemingly
on.
created a space to bring in.
Right. It was supposed to be a safe space.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, I just hope this doesn't stop the wheel from moving forward for, the body positivity and loving you for who you are, just because this one person showed their human flaw. My heart goes out to the victims. I think they're incredibly brave. Thank you for sharing, because it does happen all the time, and to see it come to light is, I hope, a step in the right direction to change some things. Because, girl, it ain't great.
Yeah.
Oh,
well,
that sucks though.
Yeah, but that's what's happening today. So
yeah. So we're gonna go ahead on it. No, but we're gonna take a quick break, and in the next segment, we are going to have a lovely discussion with Adreian Walker. Let's talk about how the audition experience has changed a little bit. It used to be, I know back in my day, I'm so old. It was in person. You go with a crowd of people. There's, cuts and whatever. You come back, you sing, you dance, you do whatever in front of a table of people in person. Well, now, and I'm sure self-tapes were a thing before the pandemic, but it's just become much more prominent now. Post-pandemic, where you can just get up, put maybe a shirt on and nothing underneath, and get in front of a camera and do your thing, send it off, and boom, boom, pow, get the job. So it's a lot. It's different. It's changed now. Yeah. So we're going to talk to Adreian a little bit about the differences, get some tips on how to have a successful audition process, get some stories of like her journey. She's a fellow Southern gal as well, so we're going to have a good time with that.
That's exciting.
All right.
We'll see you in the next segment.
Okay, we are here with a special guest. We're interviewing the beautiful, the wonderful, the talented Adreian Walker.
Okay, hello. Welcome, Adreian. We want to give a little short bio, as we always do. Adreian Walker is a multifaceted artist and performer hailing from Jonesboro, Georgia. She has received her Bachelor of Arts degree from the iconic HBCU Spelman College in Atlanta, Georgia, and her Master's of Music at Chicago Conservatory of Performing Arts at Roosevelt University. Now, she has performed regionally in a vast array of shows and made her Broadway debut as Nala in The Lion King in 2016. She's also a vocalist and voiceover artist and voices the character Peanut in the YouTube series McTucky Fried High. She also has a say in the wheelhouse of TV film, and she's known as Shanti Showstopper Page in Power Book 4, Force. Finally, she and her husband, Austin Cook, are the founders of 32 Bar Cut, which is a YouTube channel and podcast where they create content to address the ins and outs of performing, tips and tricks for auditions, and an honest look at what it means to be a performer on Broadway. Welcome, Adreian.
Thank you. Hey, Sydney. Hey, India. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Thank you for being here. So the really cool thing about our show and why we started is because we are both Broadway performers, but we are two different generations. I'm a dancer. She is a singer, and I think the one thing that connects us, because we have like this really strong chemistry, is the fact that we're Southern girls. So the thing that makes it so amazing to have you here with us today is the fact that you're a Southern girl too.
I am.
Yeah. So we discussed in one of our first episodes about our journey moving from the South up to the North, speaking New York City. I do understand you spent some time in Chicago as well. So what was your experience moving from Georgia to New York City or big cities like Chicago?
Yeah, that is such a great question, because you just think a city is a city and it's not going to be a huge transition, or you'll just get adjusted, but I moved to Chicago first. And I moved for grad school, and I just really wanted to be away. I wanted to see what it felt like to not live in Georgia and not live near my parents. And it was shocking. Not only was the weather shocking, it was the culture that the weather. Oh my God. The winter in Chicago is by far the worst winter I've ever experienced. But it was really a culture shock, because even though we're from the South and I'm from the South, there is a different type of segregation in Chicago that I just wasn't accustomed to. Like, I
Really?
grew up in mixed schools. Now, my elementary school was predominantly white, but my middle school was not. My middle school was very black. And then when I got to high school, it was very mixed. And so I had all kinds of exposure to different races. But in Chicago, they really keep to themselves. And
Really?
that was
Wow.
really sad to watch. If you ride the Red Line from Rogers Park to 95th, you will see the color imbalance. You will see the race
No
imbalance. It will
way.
start very white and it will finish all black,
Oh
to the
wow.
Wow.
point where you're just very aware of your race. So that was one thing. And the other thing, too, is that Southern hospitality just isn't there, even though a lot of Chicago folks, especially Black folks, are coming from Mississippi and Louisiana and Missouri. They're all just coming from those areas. But
Yeah.
there's a hardness there that I had to adjust to. And I remember after living there for like 3 years, I came home and my sister was like, "You're different." And I was like, "Yeah, I am, but I had to be." I can't just
Yeah.
be walking around with a smile on my face in this
Thank
really
you.
Yes,
hard
that was
I
city.
one of the
so
things that
relate.
we discussed. Do
Yeah.
not wear your feelings on your
On your
sleeve.
yeah, and I've
No.
gotten the same reaction like, well, you just seem like you just walk around with an attitude all the time. Like, you have to, you have to harden up, you have to, change your demeanor at times, especially depending on who you're dealing with and where you are.
That's right.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
now,
My
was there a difference with moving to New York City because New York City is a little bit more of like a melting pot?
Yeah, I would say that the cultures blended a lot differently in New York, and that was a welcome change. Chicago is cleaner. They have alleys. They put their trash, in a dumpster. But
Yeah.
so that was new. But it was an easier transition from Chicago to New York. I think if I had gone straight from at like Jonesboro, Georgia to New York, I would have came back home crying. I would not
Yeah.
have been ready.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what India was explaining to me a little too, is that, the difference between, I was thinking, sometimes people from major areas will just claim that. So you're from a city right outside of Georgia. So sometimes people, I mean, right
Yeah.
outside of Atlanta, Georgia, excuse me. So people will be like, oh, I'm from Atlanta. Like, I remember that in college. But she was explaining how pretty much anything outside of Atlanta is Southern, Southern. Because I was like, well, maybe she's still kind of a city girl because she was just outside. No, it's all country. So it's all the same.
No, that on foot business, like when I first moved to Chicago, I came back skinny because I was walking everywhere. And in Georgia, you
You
drive
drive.
everywhere. Yeah.
That's right. That's
Yeah, we
right.
all go through that. Well,
And
that's
we
incredible.
survived.
Right. So, we wanted to ask, what was the motivation for you building your at-home studio, and how was the building process for that?
That was really fun. So my husband and I did that over the pandemic, and it started from, I don't sit still well. I think y'all are go-getters. You understand that. And so my father-in-law picked us up he drove from Missouri, picked us up in New York like the second week of the pandemic and drove us back. So we were in Missouri for 4 months of the start of the pandemic. And he has a home with his wife and lots of supplies, woodworking supplies and stuff. And I was on YouTube and I was like, Austin, I've got to figure out how to get into this voiceover market. It's the only thing I can do while we're off. And so I was looking up this way to make a studio with PVC pipe and curtains, sound blankets. And Austin was like, absolutely not.
Oh my
Absolutely not. And I
gosh.
was like,
Sounds a
what do
little
you mean?
janky.
It's so simple. I was like, it's gonna be so simple. I can do it myself. He's like, no. And then he did his Austin thing, which he knows exactly what I mean when I say that. And he got on the computer and he was like, this is what we're gonna do. And by the end of the week, he had this whole make this mock up with specs and measurements, how much wood we needed, all the
Wow.
materials,
The Austin magic.
yeah. I'll send over some photos of the process, but we built it in my father-in-law's garage with just like we cut the wood, I stained it, we glued, nailed, everything. And
Wow.
That is amazing.
and he made it so it's you can take it apart. So it fits into these grooves and you have this huge like closet sized sound booth and then you just lift it up and it all lays flat. Now it's heavy. I made that
You
sound
Wow.
guys
easier than it.
drove this back to New York City?
We did, but
You
then
gotta
we took
give
it
us
to
the layout.
I know. Then we took it to Chicago, and it unfortunately is still in Chicago in storage. When I filmed Forest last year, so we're kind of in between cities right now. But yeah, we drove it back to New York and we used
Wow.
it.
Wow.
And
They got you
I
for the
recorded
pandemic.
like I recorded a couple commercials in it, and we did a what is it called? Oh my God, a single. We did a Christmas single and recorded it in that booth.
Oh wow.
Oh, that's
Hmm.
Yeah, I was
amazing.
gonna ask if you only did voiceover things, or if you also was that a space that you also used for self tapes and for filming for 32 bar cut, or
That's a good question. No, I only used it for voiceover because of it's just so tiny and it's made just for one person. But for 32 bar cut, we had a two-bedroom in New York, so we painted one and we just dedicated it to 32 bar cut and self tapes. And so we painted the wall like a
nice.
nice teal green, and we had, a little couch, a little rubber tree, all of that. It's all in Chicago. It's
Yes.
all, but
It's all in the aesthetics. I love the commitment behind, like you just created an
yeah.
entire space committed
For
to it.
what you do,
Yeah.
yeah, that's commitment to the
Yeah.
craft.
Absolutely, definitely. So that's a really cool segue into my next question. So I'm just assuming 32 Bar Cut was born out of the pandemic as well. I definitely can relate. I was bored at home as well. I was pregnant, about to have a baby, so I was like, I don't know what I need for a baby or to raise a child at all. And I looked on YouTube, and you found a lot of videos, but I didn't see a lot of videos with representation of people of color. So from the pandemic was born one of my YouTube channels, Two Loves and a Like, where I review different baby items and products. Was this the same for you guys for 32 Bar Cut? Was it born out of the pandemic and building this studio?
Yeah, honestly, it shifted from the original vision. So the original vision was I was like, look, I need to do something. I think that I can offer advice on auditions because I had such an unconventional way of getting into this career. And so I was like, I think I can help people that want to know more about Broadway, theater, audition rooms, nerves. What does it feel like to really be out here? Is it the dream come true that you think it is? And so it really started like that. And it was just me at home filming myself with my cell phone, editing it on iMovie on my Mac, and then just putting it out there. And it was terrifying. I'm sure you understand starting something
Yeah.
new is terrifying, putting yourself out there.
Yeah,
But
especially if it's just you in the room. You don't have the feedback right there.
yeah. And starting a YouTube channel is interesting too because it starts really slow. It takes a long time for it to grow, and you really just have to keep going and going and believing in what you're putting out there and let it build on its own. But it really started from that, me just saying, hey, let me tell you what it's like. And then Austin was like, you know what? You should interview people. And I was like, that's a great idea. He was like, I'll be your producer. And so then Austin came on and we started interviewing our whoever would say yes, but our friends in the same industry. And
Yeah.
then Austin, I was like, Austin, you have stuff to offer too. Like you're behind the table. You probably have so much more information you can give people on what they're looking for when they're casting, what they expect. And so then Austin started doing his own stuff with it too. And then we sometimes we'll just sit and talk about a topic. And so it really was born from that, from the pandemic,
Yeah.
from just wanting to reach out, I guess, just reach out and connect with people,
Yeah.
but also feel useful too. And the
Yeah.
and the name of it, 32 Bar Cut, is
I was just
simply
about to
because
ask.
yeah, it's just about the auditions. It's usually when I get an audition, uh an audition, they'll ask for me to bring in a 32 bar cut of music. And so that's simply how I named it 32 bar cut. And I thought it was cute and catchy and,
I thought
you
so
know,
too.
Very
so.
catchy.
Brilliant, brilliant name. Yeah,
And our
I
friend,
was watching watching. It's
Yeah.
amazing. Like you guys have some really dope people on giving interviews, and it's so relatable and helpful. Like I walked away like I want to re-audition. Like I can do this a little bit better with y'all's help. So, so yes, thank you for that contribution. Like it is an awesome programming for sure.
Thank you.
And
Thank
I
you.
was doing some research too when we were looking into it, and I had noticed that one of you all's most viewed videos was the one about creating the perfect self-tape. And in all this talk about pandemic and coming back from that, we've been introduced to this idea of self-taping. And I was wondering, what are some of the pros and cons that you've noticed with self-tapes versus in person? And do you have a favorite? Do you have a preference now that you have such a wealth of knowledge around taping? Is it kind of like you prefer taping because you just kind of have it rolling off the tongue, like you just got your stuff and you just can do it, or do you still prefer in person?
Yeah, for TV and film, I prefer self-tape. For theater, in person, hands down. I do not want to do the music. I don't want to make sure the levels are right. I am more charismatic in person. I will win you over in person, and I feel like a tape just doesn't do me justice for theater. Now, for TV and film, self-tape all day because that's the medium.
Yep.
It's on film, so you can really tailor the audition just the way you want it, as far as pacing. And you're not going to get the direct feedback in the room. You're not going to get the casting director's adjustment, but that's great because then you can start assessing what you can bring to that character for each of those auditions and not relying on getting feedback, because a lot of times you're only going to get one pass anyway. So you shouldn't rely on, oh, let me do it this once and see what they say. No, it just helps you be more reassured of your personal choices for the different characters.
Yeah. And
it just seems so convenient. Like I think you mentioned in a previous episode, you're like, yeah, girl, I just did a little quick little self-tape. Didn't have to.
Oh, that was my
breezy.
Did a little
so
voiceover.
It does seem like it's something that the potential performer kind of gravitates to. So I wonder for you, do you think this is something that works for the industry? Like, do you think this is self-taping is going to be more of a dominant method or process for auditioning?
Yeah, and there's pros and cons to everything, right? And as I look onto this more and more, I think that the pros are great. You can reach more actors, so it's more accessible. Someone that's living in Ohio gets the same opportunity as someone in New York. They can send their tape in. But the cons are for people who aren't great with tech, trying to understand that, trying to find a reader, and the turnaround has changed. What they want from you, see, Sydney, what they want from you.
In such a short amount of time, yeah.
I remember the hardest one I ever did was like 12 pages, and they wanted it the next day. And it was a lot of like detective jargon, a lot of different names, different ways that someone had been murdered. It was just, it was by the end of it, I didn't even want it. I was like, I wish I had said no. So
wow.
I think that the turnaround needs to be adjusted, and allowances need to be made, because here you are now, casting directors don't have to have a space necessarily. They can work from home, and they're just, and cheaper. They shouldn't ask for so much, because there's no guarantee that they're going to watch everything. Whereas if you're in person, okay, I learned this one side and they saw the whole thing because I did it in front of them. But if they're asking you for 12 pages, I promise you they're not watching all 12 unless they're really considering you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which makes it difficult when they ask for all of that stuff in the beginning. It's kind of like, wow, even in person, it's like, do I carry the paper? Do I not? Are they expecting this? Are they expecting that? So it gets difficult. But one thing I will say, I appreciate and understand what you're saying. A lot of people might not know or might not really think about, but with self-taping, you're using the medium that they're using. So the power of editing and being able to create, like I've been in this acting class and I'm learning that, we are trained, everything that we watch and see is edited. So when you're watching a self-tape or you're wondering why your tapes are falling flat and you're not I guess as alive or charismatic. Like you can change by changing the picture, which is like just turning your head or eyes, like behavioral things that you can start to do. It doesn't even have to be so techie and like everything lights. Like it can even just be like you making them believe that they're watching an edited version, even though it's just one thing straight through. And I think a lot of people struggle with feeling like maybe my self-tape seems so boring, or why does it just fall flat? And when you realize like you can really look at this as if you were on the set, because this is the same medium they would use. It's not like you're in person and you can't, you know, shift or look a certain way off camera. Like, you know, you're giving them, you have the opportunity to make it kind of look like it is edited if you really put yourself in that world.
Absolutely. And my acting coach posted a self-tape that one of her actors did, and it was so incredibly creative. This woman was doing a scene where she was hiding from an intruder in her house. And I kid you not, this woman, she dropped to the floor. She was hiding under her bed and had her reader drag her off for the end of the scene. And I thought, that is so daring. Like, I don't think I'm ready for that type of commitment, but it did make me think outside of the box. Like, I know the casting director was like, well, no matter how this goes, I'm gonna send it through because this is just so creative, or, you know, so I think that the boundaries are changing. Yeah, I think that what, you know, this, oh, let me be the character and say the lines, that's done. It's more really a fully realized version of what you can do. I mean, honestly, like just booking Power, all of that was self-tape. All of that was remote. I didn't meet anyone until I was on set. And so and a lot of it was that they liked how my hair was. They liked my attitude, or, you know, and this was a role that I was not planning on booking. I had auditioned for Power several times. And I remember talking to Angelica at the Lion King. I was like, Angelica, they're asking me to, you know, talk a way that I don't really talk. You know, this character is violent. That's not really me. And she was like, girl, you have people in your life that are this person. So just tap into that. I was like, you're right. You're right. You're right. I know who she is. And I led with that on my final callback. And it's just interesting. You can't cast yourself. But there are moments, I will say there are moments where I've walked in the room and I'm like, I just don't feel like this is gonna vibe. I don't feel like this is right for me. And I think that it's good to trust those feelings too. You may really want something because of the opportunity or what it can do for you, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's the right fit.
That is really awesome advice, seriously, because, you know, people just automatically, especially as a dancer, like we put ourselves in this mindset of just accept everything because, you know, what's the likelihood of it's going to come around again? But there are moments where things really just aren't a fit, and it's okay to say, this isn't a fit. Like, maybe, thank you for the opportunity, but I'll try something else. So I think that's awesome advice. You don't necessarily have to, if it doesn't feel right, trust yourself first.
Yeah.
You answered what was going to be my next question, which was, have you ever booked a major role from self-tapes? And you did from a string of self-tape. That was it. But I think that's really deep too. Like India was saying, so much of TV film, I think, in actor lingo, and if you've ever heard this, everybody probably has heard this, that theater is big and TV film is small, or they have these little things that they say. And it's kind of like, I think theater is maybe broader in the sense that it's such a huge, you know, the camera picks up every little thing. The theater, you have to really reach it. You have to strive to reach the person in the last row. But there is something to be said about essence, and the ease that comes with on camera work is that you have to be relaxed, and in order to be relaxed, you in some ways have to be somebody similar to yourself, or you have to be able to tap into something that's natural enough for you to be like, I'm this person, like I'll talk how I normally talk and I'll laugh how I laugh, and that's something that I've been breaking down and understanding, because they make you feel like, in a way, maybe some advice makes you feel as if your acting has to change or it's a completely different technique. It's not. It's really just you acting as yourself, or like you said, tapping into an experience or a person that you do know and how they would react in the situation, not to the extent of theater where it's like, I have to be larger than life about it. I just have to step into those shoes rather than stepping out of the box. Like theater, you know, has you kind of come to the forefront and be like bigger and larger than life. That is like, this is my life, and like I'm just stepping into what would be my life if these were my circumstances, if this was my situation. So that's really, really cool.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think that there is a lot of talk about it needs to be this or it needs to be that if you're going to transition from theater to film. And I don't necessarily think I can get behind all of that, because at the end of the day, there just needs to be truth. There just needs to be
Exactly.
honesty in both. Theater needs to be honest too. I am not interested in watching um, an overly earnest but dishonest performance from anyone. And
Wow.
if you do that in theater, you will do it in your TV film auditions too. So, yes, I do agree with you that there's a boldness or a broadness, I think is the word you use, that you need for theater because it's such a huge stage. But some performances, you don't even need that. You just need, if I'm watching a performance and I believe that that character it believes every single word they're saying, is on board with every thought, every feeling that they're showing. I could be in the back of the house and feel it just as strongly as someone in the third row, because we have a human connection, and I think we forget that we are
Yeah.
connected, and so we just need truth. And if we put truth forward, that connection will be there.
Amen.
You better
Yes,
speak.
Deacon
That's
Walker.
a lesson. That's a lesson in art from Adrian Walker.
That is right.
Yeah.
So, do you have any memorable audition moments, whether they worked out or not, that come to mind that you want to share?
Yes, yes. And you know what? I have positive ones and negative ones.
Come on, let's
How
hear
much
it.
time do we have? But
Oh Lord.
no, I would say that, The Lion King was definitely a positive audition. I went in there, I was like, I have nothing to lose, so let's go. And honestly, when they said I had a movement call the next day, I thought, okay, this is where they're going to cut me because this is not my strength. But it all worked
Ooh, been
out.
there. Yeah.
It's tough, and it's not really presented like you could see the Lion King and not even remember how much Nala moves, right?
Yeah.
But until you're actually doing it yourself. But so that was a positive experience. I felt like I got really good feedback in the room. I felt like I came in there, I was like, I can sing this. And I feel like I'm the type they want. So it's really just about, is this going to work out for me?
Yeah.
Um, and like we already talked about power. So it was funny because I was the one casting myself, deciding I wasn't right for it. And the whole time the showrunner, Gary, he was like, no, Adrian, it was you. We were interested in you. And I remember on my callback for that, which was over Zoom, they had producers on, they had my love interest on. They were like, it's a chemistry test, And I was like, okay. And before I started, Gary Lennon, our showrunner, just said, Adrian, we have so much love for you. So just do what you've been doing. And that settled my nerves. And I could just
See?
be, because Shanti is powerful. Okay. She has no doubt. And so with film in that medium, with them seeing your eyes and everything being so close, I didn't have
Very well.
any room. I didn't have any room for doubt for that character.
Right.
And that's something I learned that day, but had to continue to reinforce even when we went on set and we were doing things that were new and scary. I was like, she don't have doubt, so figure it out.
Mm.
But negative ones, I would say, is when it doesn't gel, when I'll get the audition and it'll feel good. Like I'll get the work, I'll get the songs, or I'll get the copy, and I'm like, oh, this feels good, this feels right. But then I step in the room, and there's something about that energy in that room that is very telling to me, that I feel like I don't belong here. And that's I have to listen to that voice more. Um, Another thing that our showrunner Gary says is he likes to go where the love is. And I think that's so important. Go where the love is. Don't force it. And audition, sure. Audition to work that muscle, get comfortable with it. But if you step in a room and you don't feel love, even if you book that feeling's not going to change. You're going to have that in your rehearsal process. You're going to feel that when you're in tech. You're going to feel that when you're performing on stage. You just have to listen.
Now, see, that's really interesting. I'm not sure if it's any different for the acting, singing audition experience from the dancer experience, but I feel like every audition experience for me as a dancer has been kind of cold. Like, I almost feel like the people sitting behind the table on the other side of the table are almost trained to be
Like icy out.
emotionless,
Yeah.
yeah, or disconnected, I guess, to assert themselves as the leaders. I don't know, but I always feel a sense of coldness, or I can't quite reach the people on the other side of the table. So that's really interesting that you kind of get like this sense, or maybe it is more intimate when you're auditioning actor singer side versus dancer side, where it's a huge group of people at one time. That's really interesting. Like, I haven't felt no love, never, child.
And I hate that. It shouldn't be that way, right? I
No, it
mean, just
shouldn't.
think about the times that you've been frustrated, or maybe you haven't put your warmth forward, how much energy sucking that experience is to, like, well, I have an attitude, and so this is what you're going to get from me today. It's just so much easier, I think, to be warm and to be kind. And so
And it
I'm
helps
sorry that
people's
you haven't
nerves. It
experienced
helps
that.
people disengage. Yeah,
You get the best audition from people.
exactly. Just be a human to another human, and you definitely will get better results for sure. Yeah. But I don't know. I haven't auditioned in a long time, so I do hope that the audition experience for dancers has changed.
Mm.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
man, I'm a little jealous. That's lovely.
Yeah, I think it varies. I felt both ways. I felt a lot of warmth and love sometimes, especially when it's the right job. And then I felt really cold, especially depending on where, like, you have different levels. So sometimes you're just going to sing for one person and they're just to pass you off or not. Can she hit the notes or not? Okay, great. And you go into the next. And then you have maybe 3 or 5 people. And then you have, your 10, which I haven't got to that level, but I'm praying that it's coming soon. So, yeah, but I wonder, and I wanted to ask too, do you have, especially maybe towards the more negative piece of auditioning, when you don't necessarily feel that love or that warmth, but you're still going in and trying to work the muscle, do you have maybe a few tips, maybe 3, 4, or 5 tips of what to do and how to center yourself and how to really nail and give the best audition you can give?
Yeah, I think it can be tough because you won't discover until you walk in the room if the energy is in your favor or not. But I think the best advice I can give is just practicing on controlling your energy and protecting your energy. So if that means before every audition you have some type of routine that makes you feel safe, makes you feel comfortable, a playlist or something you can listen to that makes you feel powerful, makes you feel strong, or puts you in the character, um, and just making sure that you aren't distracted before you walk in. Like, don't scroll on Instagram, put your phone away. Um, and if you're already prepared and already off book, you don't need to be staring at your sides. You can be doing something else before you walk in. And if you're in a waiting room or a holding area that's distracting, get out of it. Go up to the monitor or the casting director, whoever's pulling people, and just say, hey, I'm going to be around the corner. I'm going to be over here when you get to my name, just so you know, or just let me know when I'm next, and I'll wait closer by. But you can control that experience so that you don't have all those things defeating you before you get in the room. Now, if you get in the room and it's unfriendly, I recently went in for an audition, and the reader was unkind. Yeah, he was really rude. I spoke to everyone in the room. Mind you, they were running behind, and no one really explained why. They just stopped holding auditions for 30 minutes and with no explanation. And so I was already kind of like, I had that energy on me, and I walked in. I was like, okay, reset, let's go. And I spoke to everyone, and he just kind of gave me this look like, I'm not going to say hello to you. And because my character kind of had the upper hand in all of our scenes, I just used the irritation I felt with him and brought it into the scene. So that's the other thing you can do, is if you feel like what's happening to you in the room is messing with your energy, use it. If you can't use it, you've got to figure out a way to brush it off. Y'all are good. Thank you. I've really enjoyed chatting with y'all, and I've learned more about you too as well. I feel like I've gotten some more insight into who you are. You can find me. I'm on Instagram, but I am not great at posting. Maybe that will improve. But my handle is at A Song Is in My Heart. And I do sell soaps. I and soaps and whipped butters. And I started doing that because I was focusing too much on my auditions. And one Christmas, I gave everybody at the Lion King some whipped butter. And Lindy Way was like, you need to sell this. And I was like, nah, girl, I'm not selling this. That sounds like a headache. No. But then my dad also said, Adrian, you should sell this. And I was like, okay, how do I do that? So I just like poured everything into focusing on how do I make this, how do I sell it, how do I make it look beautiful and a representation of what I would want. And it's well, my point before I tell you the name of the company is that the second that I started doing all of that, I booked my first TV gig after 9 years of auditioning. So there's something to it about putting your focus in your craft, sure, but it can't be all encompassing because you're telling the universe, I don't have it, I don't have it, I don't have it. And so you're not going to get it. And then when you let that go, it comes to you. But anyway, okay, so it's called Tembo Spa. And Tembo means elephant in Swahili. It's spelled Tembo Spa. So you can follow us at Tembo Spa on Instagram, and you can check out my Etsy shop under the same name.
Wow. That was really, really, really great.
Wasn't it good?
I feel blessed, like especially that last segment.
She was saying
something
some
really
words.
Yeah, it really just something almost burst
Come on,
in me. I was
let
like,
me
wow,
lead
this
you.
is it's something clicked for real.
Yeah.
So it's great to be able to talk to. We've had some incredible guests already, like people with wealth of knowledge in our field and outside of it, and connecting the dots and everything, and y'all are just incredible. So
yes,
we are very
your
grateful.
knowledge and your tips.
Yeah.
And her warmth. That was such a beautiful conversation. Just
Yes.
flowed so wonderfully. She gave some nice gems and was relatable. So yes,
Beautiful
thank you,
as
Adrian, for
always.
joining us today.
Thank y'all for joining us. Please subscribe, hit the bell to get notifications for our YouTube videos.
That's
subscribe to our Spotify, Apple Music, anywhere that you can find podcasts, we'll be there.
That's right. And remember, guys, remember to make your sage cues, but always remain social. I'm India.
And I'm Sydney.
We'll see you next time.
Bye. Social Cues is hosted by India Brown and Sydney Wilson, produced by Dale Brown, and music by Isaiah Young.
Find us on social media at SocialQ 2023 on Instagram and Social Cues 2023 on TikTok.
Don't forget to subscribe to our page and follow us for notifications of new episodes.
Until next time.